Hi everyone, my name is Rachel Copera. I'm an art teacher and I am going to go ahead and I am going to start the semester 2021. I hope everyone's having a good beginning to 2021 with an art fundamentals video for my students. This is applicable to anyone who is working on practicing visual arts. For this fundamental video, we're going to work on exploring lights and darks with a variety of different mediums. The different mediums we're going to use are basically dual tip markers. I will go ahead and I will give you guys the link to the students I will give you guys the link to the markers that my students have. So hey students, welcome to your first sketch stretch. Welcome back to a new year. You should be doing this in your sketchbook right now, right? So part of being an artist is having an open space. So we're reminded of that this week. Make sure you clear your desk and you have an open space. I want you to find 2 open pages in your sketchbook. Now, again, your sketchbook, your pages don't need to look exactly like this. And I want you to get out your pencil to start out with. And we're going to go just light to dark all the way across the page. And we're going to review the different shading techniques. First shading technique and your favorite shading technique by far is blending. Kids just like blending more. I remind everyone to not over blend with their fingers because we want to see those different lights and darks, those different values. So value is the amount of black in a color. And it's really important to always start, when you're thinking about art, think about pencil. If you have different pencils, you can get different values. We use the basic Blick #2 pencils for the most part in my class. And they're awesome, they're great, and you can get a variety of different values. That's what I'm using in this video. We're gonna go over, in this little drill, this fundamental drill, we're gonna go over 5 shading techniques. So before you make your scale, your value scale, I want you to go ahead and write down the names of the different shading techniques over at the right. Blending, hatching, cross-hatching, stippling, and scribbling. All right? And we're going to go ahead and we are going to try to create 10 values, 10 different lightnesses of a gray with these different shading techniques. Now, there are tons of videos on YouTube that do this, but I wanted to make another video to emphasize to my students, there is no such thing as too many times doing a value scale. It's a great warm-up. Now, a lot of art teachers use numbers when they talk about value. I think it's solid. It totally works. So what I've been using over the years is the scale 10 to 0. 10 is black or as dark as you can get with your pencil. And 0 is white. No shading at all. And you know, you could use a ruler when you're making value scales. I tend not to use rulers because I feel like it slows things up, and I want to show my students it's okay if you draw an imperfect line. If you hear any screaming ever in the back of any of my videos, it's because I'm also a mom and we're in quarantine, or any sort of yelling. I'm sure parents at home and students, my students can relate to the sudden screams of a little child. Okay, so when you're blending, you're gonna go from dark to light, and you're gonna turn the pencil to the side. I should have a pencil right near. You'd think I would. Here we go. You're gonna turn the pencil to the side and you're just going to put pressure with your finger like this. And notice how I'm always changing the direction of my pencil. So dark to light. Now, as you go to the right, you're slowly easing up on the pressure. Now, if you're behind right now, pause the video. I'm doing all of this in real time, but please, students, take a minute, pause the video, and catch up. And it's okay if you don't do all of the value scales either. I'm just showing you kind of like a variety. I'm tracing the word blending again, but this is blending, okay? And you're going dark to light. There should be a 0. There should be a 0 where it's white. And there should be a 10 where it's as dark as you can make it. Now, there should be a slow change. So often in value scales, we'll see a sudden change where all of a sudden it's dark and then light. You want to avoid that, okay? You want there to be a slow change and you want to be aware. Now, I have a lot of students say, oh my gosh, Miss, like everything's so dark when I draw, or opposite, everything's so light. This exercise is so valuable, because it forces you to practice different pressures with your hand. The next shading technique we're going to go over is hatching. Love hatching, love me some hatching. It's just a bunch of lines. And something important to keep in mind when we are doing hatching is hatching lines can be in all sorts of different directions. They can be curved as well. So just always remember that. Now I'm kind of like making a grid. Again, you can pause your video and make this into a full on grid if you want. I wouldn't. I feel like with art, all of the time we're like trying to make everything look so perfect and then we never end up doing any art at all. And it's horrible. What's horrible? The worst thing is to not do any art. So just as long as you're moving forward and you're practicing, you guys are doing great. Okay, so with hatching, you can put different hatching lines on top of each other, right? So you could go up, you could get lighter, 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 lighter. If you need to bring something down that's darker, do that. So you could see I'm adding another layer on top of my 10 right there, right? So it's about pressing down harder, but also just adding another layer. And that's something that I want to talk about more too this semester is art's about layering and going back and fixing it. Like if you feel like it's not there, then go back and fix it. Also, drawing with your eraser. An eraser is a tool to draw. So you can use your eraser, turn it over, to pick up value, right? And that's also a way to kind of like put in light sources and stuff. So I just want you guys to keep that in mind. Now I'm doing cross-hatching. Cross-hatching is just such a great thing. It is X's cross-hatching, right? You're hatching two different ways, and cross-hatching can also be curvy too. And notice how I'm just putting in more layers. I'm darkening the edges of my hatching and cross-hatching. Now, feel free to pause your video and catch up. Don't get stressed out. Sometimes my daughter, who's 5, gets stressed out and is like, well, it doesn't look like yours. It doesn't look like yours. Well, it doesn't need to. It's yours. Breathe in, breathe out. The most important thing is that you're practicing. So slowly getting lighter. Check it out. Lightening things up. Lightening the pressure too. You're not pressing down as hard. And you do less cross-hatching. Okay, going a little lighter, un poquito lighter. And then when I get to 4, I'm on my way to white, so I'm gonna get super light. I love this exercise because there's really no such thing as doing this too many times. Here I am 37, and oh my goodness, like I still am gaining a lot just by doing this exercise. And notice I'm looking back and I'm comparing my values, my hatching. I'm bringing down my values because I'm comparing them. I'm being like, okay, is this the same gray as I'm going through? Right? So students, what I want you to get in the habit of doing more is just make a little area in your sketchbook where you're writing lessons and thoughts that are coming up to you, or questions in class. My goodness, I'll give you points if you ask questions in the chat or you engage. So just like pencil smears, Miss Copera, what do I do about pencil smearing, right? It's okay. Just pick it up with an eraser and be aware of it. Be aware of smearing. You know, it's just gonna happen. So everyone breathe in, breathe out, pause the video, take a break. Be excited that you're doing some kind of art and you're practicing it, and you'll apply this to your, drawings in the future. It's really, really important that you stop and you always like practice your art fundamentals and you build your skills. We don't do that enough. But give yourself the space to practice and know, well, it'll raise my grade. If all of your grades look the same, make adjustments with your eraser, right? So like I was saying before, just like lift up with your eraser if you feel like they're looking the same. So between 0 to 10, there should be a difference. Yes? 0 to 10, there should be a difference. Breathing in, breathing out, going down with the grid right here. So nice. Silence is such a nice thing. I appreciate it so much these days. I still can hear talking. Okay, guys, stippling. Students have a hard time with art because it takes time. You know, it's not like clicking on a phone. And they have a hard time with stippling because it takes a lot of time. What is stippling? Stippling's awesome, first of all. It is a shading technique that involves dots, making dots. And I got so impatient with it, I went down to scribbling. So the next two are stippling and scribbling. And scribbling's just a bunch of little squigglies. And notice how I'm going lighter and lighter. But I'm kind of like taking a break between the scribbling and the stippling, because you have to have a lot of patience for stippling. But stippling and scribbling are great. All these shading techniques are great because they give you a different kind of texture, right? So it helps us to understand the surface of whatever it is that you're drawing, like the shape of it, how it's bending. But if you have all of these shading techniques in your repertoire, it's easier to show how something feels when you're drawing it. So I don't know, you could use scribbling if you're drawing a mustache, if you're drawing the trees, outside, the leaves on the trees. Okay, so I'm putting in more dots here, going back to my stippling. Students, don't be like, oh my gosh, she's doing too much. Look, maybe just do 3 if you feel like it's too much. Do a few. But I would love for you to record some lessons. Write down which is your favorite shading technique, what's hard for you, what's difficult. Stop looking at your phone. So these are little things that were coming into my mind when I was drawing. I'm not drawing this live, by the way. I learned that that's too hard. I need to do 2 separate recordings. I am convinced that we are doing less art in the 21st century because of screens. Now, I understand that screens are good things, but they also keep us from like having progress in our personal lives. So don't look at your phone, guys. Stop right in the corner of your sketchbook. How many times have you looked at your phone during this? Just wondering. Because it stops you. Phones are great interrupters. So put your phone away. Put your phone away. Is that funny? Am I making anyone out there laugh yet? Stippling, dot, 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 dot. You could do this at any age. Value scales, you know, you could be 50. My grandma started painting at 65. You could be doing this at 5, you know? My daughter does this stuff. I mean, it's like all cool, right? So you could kind of like do this and you will bring it into your art, because lights and darks, we're exploring lights and darks in this video. It's kind of like an art fundamental. And it's all about that. It's all about not being afraid to go to a 10, a super dark. It's all about not being afraid to be light. But always when you're drawing, when you're working your sketchbook, don't think it needs to look perfect. Be okay with writing down thoughts, okay? And I'm just writing down a note about an idea that I'm having about a lesson plan. Guys, don't feel like, you know, you can't write. As long as it's appropriate, you like write your thoughts, your brain, you know, in your sketchbook. I mean, that's your space. Everything is more interconnected than we realize. I just went ahead and wrote that because it's kind of like art is nourishing for the mind. Art is nourishing for the brain. It's kind of like a form of meditation, of self-care. And once you want to work, everyone, kids, and you can add this to your lessons for the week, your fire rate for the week. You want to work on not being afraid of making a mistake. Or don't get overwhelmed with the fact like, oh my gosh, my drawing doesn't look like yours. It's not good. No one cares. Everyone's good. Everyone loves you. No one's judging anyone. Everyone in the class is just happy if you're doing any sort of art at all. If you're doing anything with your hands during the 21st century, it is an exciting thing. 21st century, 2021, here we go. So now I'm just going back and I'm, you know, kind of like reworking my different values and adding, you know, different layers. That's what's happening right now. So I'm going back, I'm making adjustments. As an artist, whatever you do, you have to be okay with going back and making adjustments, adding stuff in, dark, 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 dark. I'm just darkening my grid, my non-ruler grid. Now, I have students that like want everything to be perfect, right? And it is fine. That's totally fine. But ask yourself, is your perfection holding you back? Right? That's a very common thing. Okay, I'm taking a dual tip marker and I'm kind of giving myself a really hard, solid boundary to kind of keep my page a little organized. Because for this lesson with exploring light and dark, we are starting with pencil, right? 10 to 0 value. Value is the amount of black in a shade, but we're going to do more. So everyone, all my students, you should have a pen, a pencil, an eraser, your sharpener, your sketchbook, but you should also have your markers, your dual tip markers. Thank you, donors choose. Thank you, all donors. You should have those. You should also have color pencils. Again, if you're missing any sort of supplies, email me. Email me. Don't stay quiet. And you could do this, you know, you could be resourceful. You could do this exercise with Crayola crayons, believe it or not, and I'll go over that in a second. But like, just make sure you're moving forward. Don't stay silent. Just keep doing stuff. So it looks like I'm kind of like taking a break and I'm thinking about what I'm going to work on next. I want to stop. I want to talk about pen. Now, one of the mistakes I made last semester is I got everyone a pen. You should have got a pen. And I don't think we did enough with the pen. Drawing with pen is an amazing thing. And I had a student send me an email. My student was like, oh my gosh, drawing with pen is a game changer because you can't take it back. It could be any sort of pen. It could be a ballpoint pen. But it's just kind of like, it teaches you to not be afraid or not like erase, erase, erase. Okay, so I want you to do this same exercise. Everyone out there, I want you to do this same exercise, but with a pen. With a pen. Okay, so we're gonna number again, 10 to 9. You know, you could pause your video. You could use a ruler, make it all straight. But review, 0 is white, 10 is black, 5 is in the middle. So can we have a slow change? You know, stop. You always want to stop and self-monitor. Be like, okay, am I having a slow change in all of my values? Do I have 10 different values? When you're doing your pen value scale, you can use any shading technique you want. Obviously, you could do this for every single shading technique too. But you could do hatching, cross-hatching, scribbling, stippling. You could do a combination of all of them as you're drawing with pen. I'm sure everyone can relate with explosive noise all of a sudden. So how's that pen value scale going? Yes? Is it awesome? Okay, couple of things. Pens, scribbling. It makes cool drawing. It's all about layers. Layers, layers, layers. Put another layer of pen down. Okay, so like light. And then add another layer. You could do line weight. You could do pressure on a pen. I've had a ton of friends who are artists like praise ballpoint pens. I've seen some awesome ballpoint pen drawings. So go light, 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 slowly make it light. Now, your value scale, once again, does not need to look like mine, but I do recommend trying to get 10 values. 10 being black, 0 being white, everything in the middle. So notice how on my 10 value, there's just more layers. I'm putting more lines and more hatching and more cross hatching on top of each other. And then less as I get closer to white. Now, I have been in this video going from black, totally black, number 10, all the way to 0, which is white. I feel like it's easier. You can explore going from light to dark, going the other way, meaning starting with your 1, going super light, and then getting super dark if you're kind of like hesitating. But yeah, I'm trying to make sure there is a change between each of my values here. So I'm really laying on the ink for value 10, right? So you could pause your video and ask yourself, is there a slow change between all of my different values as I work on this value scale? Going back in, I'm adding more line weight. Enjoying some fizzy, sparkly water. I'm just outlining my grids right there. Really outlining it, making it clear. Adding a lot of different layers. Okay, adding another layer. Okay, so again, so far in this video, I have been exploring lights and darks with pencil and pen. Okay, getting a little lighter, right? Adding another layer, bringing the 6 down. Okay, it looks like my 6 and my 7 are similar. And my 6, my 7, and my 8 look similar, right? So what I'm doing is I'm modeling the thinking that was going on in my head when I was doing this. Because it's hard to record thinking and draw at the same time. Some people can do it, but I'm not there. So what am I gonna do? How am I gonna make my 8 darker? Am I gonna make my 8 darker? Notice how I'm making my 6 darker by adding hatching. I don't think I've realized yet that my 7 and my 8 are pretty light, right? So sometimes you'll find that you zone in with art, you zone into one area. It's always important to zoom out and compare. Okay, there I go. I go in and I fix my 8 by making it kind of darker. Adding another layer on the 4. Sometimes, you know, you gotta stop, step back, squint. Does everything look the same? All right. Looking pretty good, actually. My 4 and my 3, there's too big of a jump. There should be a slow, even jump. It should go down un poquito, a 1/10. So you want a 1/10 of a change. Now, will you ever get to that? Will it ever be perfect like a computer? No, right? But you are aiming for perfection, right? It's okay if it's not perfect, but as long as you're like working towards being better. That is the purpose with art. You're always working towards being better. Adding a darker line weight there. Fabulous. Oh, I'm bringing down my 2. My 2 looks darker than my 3. Again, this is an exercise, right? We're not drawing the Mona Lisa. We're not drawing Der Schrei. We're just adding layers, making it dark to light, slower. Again, your value scale doesn't need to look like this, right? But I do recommend 10 different values, and I want to see different shading techniques. From the top, we're doing blending, hatching, cross-hatching, stippling, and scribbling, all with pencil. And then we're using a variety of those techniques with pen. Okay, go crazy. Do you know what I'm doing right now? I'm using whiteout, and I'm painting with it. It's actually gouache, but I'm bringing up the value on my pen. So that's the thing with pen, you can't really take it back. I'm going to try to get all of my students some whiteout this semester. So if you really need to like clean up an edge and you've been working in pen and marker, you have some whiteout. But what I'm doing is I'm making a little adjustment. If you don't have whiteout, Don't trip. We'll try to get you some. I mean, whiteout is such a 90s thing, right? And we'll try to get you some. But that's just to show you that you can kind of like bring up the value of something. So look around, see, ask if anyone's been in the 99-cent store, could give you some whiteout to help you play with that. I'm actually using white gouache. I happen to have a tube in my bag. It's like whiteout. It's like a cool art teacher whiteout. All right, there we go. So I'm pretty happy with these value scales. Looking, I could go back, and I feel like the scribbling and the stippling on my value scale need more work. Also, I kind of abandoned my hatching up there on my number 3. My number 3 and my number 2 values. My pencil value scales are not totally done. I kind of moved on. That's okay. Like, you can always get feedback or type feedback on the app that we're using in class called Seesaw, or you can always go back and make adjustments. But I'm going forward with value scales. I feel so good. Okay, and I'm darkening the line on the pen on the bottom of the value scale. Fabulous. So it's really important to think about value when it comes to color. So if you have markers, my students all have a bag of 40 dual tip markers. Again, thank you, Donors Choose. I really appreciate that. Color has value. Okay, all colors. Certain colors are dark, certain colors are light. You need to think when you have a color, is this a light color or is this a dark color? Because the entire world is a bunch of shadow and light, right? So I challenge you, and again, you could do this on like different pages. You could have like one page of your sketchbook that's all pencil. You could have one page of your sketchbook that's all pen. I challenge you to do value scales in marker and color pencil, and to try to think about color value in terms of, or color in terms of value, like how dark it is. This is hard. I was never taught this ever directly. I think maybe I was indirectly, they were trying to teach it to me, but I didn't really understand it fully. So I encourage everyone to go ahead and do this skill exercise. I'm bringing my numbers down, and my numbers are all off 1, if you can tell. I haven't caught on yet, but they're all off because I always forget to write 0. So now I'm fixing it. I don't mind if there are errors and scribbles in my sketchbook. I think scribbles are okay, right? But I find that my students, they get so upset when something looks wrong and they want to give up. So it's okay if something doesn't look perfect. Hi.
I'm buying a passion planner for my 1,000 Respects dog.
I know, we need to order you a passion planner. I'm a big passion planner fan, by the way. It's a great thing, a great tool. Okay, so I'm gonna do a value scale.
I like writing, that's why.
Fabulous.
I like writing hundreds of poems than anything else.
I love it.
Except for big words.
Be still my heart.
That's why I don't like writing in my journal. Because there's really big lines, and I don't like writing big things.
Thank you. That was amazing. Hey guys, I'm back. Thank you for anyone who is tired of me. You got a little break there. Guys, marker. What is a number 10 in marker? You're black. Your black is your number 10. So what you should do is you should go through your marker bag. Sophie, Sophie, stop shaking it. What you should do is you should go through your marker bag and you should arrange them dark to light. And I have a separate video for that where we go through our markers and we kind of talk about sorting them dark to light. But I really recommend you do that. Your light gray might be close to a number 1. Your yellow is the lightest color, usually. It has the most amount of white, it has the least amount of black. So yellow is more like a tint. Tint is a color plus white. Then this green. So when I did this, I was just kind of doing it by eye and I was picking them out. I was kind of squinting and I was pretending all the colors were grays. So I was like, ooh, is that a number 3? Right? So I was kind of imagining how much black is in that color, how much white is in that color. And then I was just taking a guess. It comes out okay. For purple, I would put that more closer to the middle because purple has blue in it. Blue is the heaviest color. Sophie, can you stop shaking the nerds? Blue is the heaviest color. So that's why that like dark blue is my number 9. Okay. Red and purple, they're like pretty heavy and intense colors. That's why I put it at a number 8. Stop shaking the nerds. And then, yeah, number 7, this lighter blue. So generally your blues, what did I say? Your blues are going to be your darker values. And my kids have heard me talk about this a lot because I talk about it in different videos. Okay, we got, okay, now notice what I'm doing here. I'm layering.
You're whapping me when you say
I am layering.
You're doing this.
Art is all about layering, right? I feel like we don't emphasize that enough to kids or all learning. Whenever you make anything, it's about layers. It's about adding another layer, adjusting, modifying, making something better. When you're writing, right? When you're doing test corrections, you're always improving. You're always adding another layer to your learning. You're growing. So you can add markers on top of markers to make them darker. You could add stippling on top of a different color to make it darker. So you can go ahead and you can combine. So art, layers and adjustments, right? It's about layering. It's about returning to a drawing. Don't abandon a drawing forever. You can always return to it, right? You don't have to finish the whole thing in one setting, though it's pretty good. Like nowadays, you should finish your art in one setting. Okay. Go ahead and make these lines. Again, you can use a ruler. Don't get upset if it doesn't look like mine. I'm adding stippling, a dark gray on top of that blue to make it even darker. Please stop shaking that candy.
Great.
You like my value scale?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Can you teach me how to make one?
Well, you can follow this video when it's done.
Okay.
I would love to hear if you think you can follow this video. You can always pause your video, guys. Okay? I learned that from other YouTubers.
Wow, you make hundreds of videos of those. There's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15.
Again, I'm a mom teacher. Okay, so yeah, I'm adding another layer on top of that to bring it even down. So you can always like move away, be like, okay, is there a slow change? Does it slowly go from dark to light? And you can always add another layer on top. You could add blues on top of each other, greens on top of each other. You just explore. Now, are you one of those folks that owns a bunch of art supplies, but you never use them? You need to use your art supplies. Markers end up drying out eventually. So let's say you got this really nice pack of markers for Christmas. If you don't use them, they will dry them out. So make sure you use them. I'm just giving myself a little boundary right there across the edge. Again, there's no right or wrong answer to this exercise. Going light to dark or dark to light with the color. And you could do this like a scale of 20 or a scale of 40. I'm going to make a video like of the marker where I'm exploring value dark to light. So don't worry, that's on its way. So again, organize your sketchbook any way you want. Okay, these are my different value scales. I think it's a pretty cool page. Awesome. Awesome sauce. You can take back, you could highlight. I encourage you to write lessons. Lessons in. And this video is filmed in real time. But again, you can always pause your video. You can leave a comment, students. You never comment. Let me know if I'm repeating myself too much.
You don't have to do that.
Jacob, can you whisper? Jacob, can you whisper? Okay, so I'm going ahead and I'm highlighting the top. Again, in this video, we're exploring lights and darks with pencil, pen, and marker so far. That's kind of where we are. Marker so far. So you can stop, you know, this might be a good point to take a break. You can go back, you can redo different parts. Again, we went from blending, hatching, cross-hatching, stippling, and we have pen using any shading technique. Oh, I also talked about scribbling. So we got blending, hatching, cross-hatching, stippling, scribbling. So we have 5 shading techniques in pencil. All right, and then for the pen value scale, it was kind of like a combine all the different shading techniques. And now we jumped, and now we're thinking about value and marker. Okay, so do you have crayons? Do you have color pencils? Explore those. So I really challenge you to organize your colors by value, by lights and darks. Look for that darkest blue. That's probably going to be your number 9. Again, if you have a black, find that. That is your number 10. And that looks like a... That looks like a black. That's what that looks like. Or a dark blue. Okay, so now I'm just randomly picking out color pencils, and I'm just like placing them different places because I know I can go back and I can layer. Oh, look at me. I'm putting brown on top of light blue. So painters out there know that brown and blue is a great way to make black, or burnt sienna and blue is a great way to make black. So I'm adding layers on top of each other, adding all sorts of layers. What do you think, so?
You could also use purple and blue to make black.
Purple and blue? Yeah, it would be like a really dark blue purple. Yeah, has that worked for you? Mm-hmm. Okay.
If you want to make brown, you could put all sorts of colors together.
Yeah, totally.
If you don't have brown. One way I made peach was to put peach and brown together. Dark peach for the horse's tail.
Thank you. Guys, I'm just modeling going through your sketchbook and writing down thoughts and lessons. Some of my students have been complaining. They're like, oh my gosh, Miss, these markers go through the page. What do we do? They're not from England, but I thought I'd do a funny voice. And I say, like, guys, look, when the markers go through the page, the backs of the page, that's a great place to write little notes for yourself and really thoughts. So your sketchbook should be kind of like this messy, beautiful place of discovery and thoughts and ideas. So I really want you to write anything you're thinking about, just stop, write it down. Take a picture, put it on Seesaw, I'll give you some points. Seesaw, again, is your digital journal. Yeah, a sketchbook is great. Sketchbook is a place to be messy. A sketchbook is a place of discovery. You want to fill your sketchbook pages as much as possible. So that brown is looking pretty light for number 8. Okay, it looks like I'm layering in some purple in there, and then I'm using my purple as my number 7. Drinking some water. Stop, breathe, add layers in. So it's hard. I'm learning how to make YouTube videos. I feel like so much of my content hasn't been good, and there must be so much bad content out there because there are all these teachers. We're flooding YouTube because all of a sudden we have to teach on YouTube and we're trying to learn how. So one thing I've learned is I need 2 versions of a video, real time and fast. So I'll try to do this video in a fast way too. Okay, notice how I'm adding in hatching. And I'm adding in layers on top. Yes, guys, it's going to be okay. Everyone take a deep breath. Repeat after me. It's going to be okay. You're still here. You're still breathing. You're doing art in a pandemic, and that's pretty cool. So I'm adding in another layer on top, and oh my gosh, there is a little hand there. Do you know what that is? That's my 2-year-old's hand right there. And like, that's the reality, you know, and just because we have little people around, we're taking care of family, we shouldn't stop creating, right? You got to keep pushing forward and you got to keep creating even though it's hard. You got to give yourself little goals. Hashtag passion planner. But yeah, that is not my hand. That is a chubby, cute hand. And my hand is not that cute. So I'm trying to, I know I'm at the end of being able to work right now. So I'm trying to work as much as I can. So, you know, and guys, I'm not gonna penalize you if your little brother or sister starts scribbling on your art project. I mean, that's life. You know, just try to avoid it. It's all about finding a workspace. Right, so notice I'm getting into yellow territory, yellow, kind of like a light brown. I mean, we're getting closer to white now. And I'm adding in a lot of layers. Ooh, I have a cool gold color pencil. I don't think my students have gold. For the most part, I have all the exact same art supplies as them, but I think I have different color pencils. So when you're doing the color pencil value scale, you know, less is more as you get closer to 0 and it's closer to white. I don't know about the amount of pressure that Mr. Maxwell is putting on the number 1. That might be a little too dark, but you got to kind of do your best. Okay. And it's okay. Embrace the mess. Embrace the mess. Art, it's okay for art to be messy. It doesn't need to be neat as long as you're doing something, as long as you're practicing. Ooh, I'm adding another layer of blue on top of that. I love blues and greens. I love them. I love blues on top of greens, greens on top of blues, blues next to greens. Okay, ooh, I'm taking a risk there, putting that purple there. But that's a really light purple. That purple's light. That's kind of like a number 2, believe it or not. You always have to ask yourself, okay, how much white is in a color? And the amount of pressure, the amount of layers, that says a lot about, you know, the color. Okay. So I'm taking a break. Ooh, adding in another layer, adding in more hatching, cross hatching. Again, you could go back and you can, you know, do this exercise with whatever you have, right? So just, you know, give yourself time and thoughts. Okay, believe it or not, you all received some watercolor. I really recommend watercolor, especially during this pandemic. It's just a great thing. I am going to try to do a value scale while simultaneously on this page, guys, kids, be quiet. Well, simultaneously reviewing different watercolor techniques. Okay, so get out those watercolors, guys. You can pause your video. You can go get a cup of water, paper towel, and the brush, and you should have more brushes to pick up during supply distribution, different brushes. So you have a wider variety of brushes to work with during semester 2. Okay. So lights and darks. Here we go. We are going to try to go from dark to light with watercolor. Okay. So again, like what we're doing with this Art Fundamentals video, exploring lights and darks, is we're just getting out our art supplies. We're also doing a survey being like, okay, what don't I have? What do I have? Did I ever receive watercolor? If there is a material in this video that you do not have, it would be a really good thing to write that down. Like make a list of art supplies that you need. Email me. Let me know what's up. Okay. And by email me, I mean my students. If you're not a student and you just find this video, you contact Amazon if you need an art supply. All right, lights and darks with watercolor. There are different watercolor techniques. I am a self-taught watercolor artist. My grandma taught me a little bit. And I went ahead and I looked on YouTube when I was reminding myself about watercolor a few years ago. Found this great video. It just basically recommended that we go over washes, graded washes, and wet on wet. And please write below in the comments or leave a link, drop a link if you find a really good watercolor YouTube video that I can share with my students. I would really appreciate it. So wash, graded wash, wet on wet. And we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna number our value scale. Remember, let's review what we did at the beginning of this video. 10 to 5 to 0. I always put 5 in the middle. I could measure. I could stop and I could measure. But then it would take forever. right? And at the time when I was doing this, I didn't have my ruler nearby. Don't stop and look for a ruler. You're finding an excuse to not do art, in my opinion. But if it makes you happier for the lines to be straight, you go for it. But we're gonna do like 3 different kind of like, you know, stripes across for watercolor. Again, if you don't have watercolor, don't worry about it. Fast forward. Right? And so wash, graded wash, wet on wet. So those are my messy watercolors. Those are the same, that's the same watercolor set that my students, you should have. I also have a cup, an ice cream cup, and a cup of water. My water is a little white because I was dipping the gouache in it earlier. Okay, so what I'm doing right now is I'm probably looking for my paper towel. You need a paper towel nearby. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, there's my paper towel. So you're gonna wanna go ahead, you're gonna wanna go from dark to light with the watercolor, and it won't be perfect at all, but we can kind of apply what we learned from the color pencil and marker exercise. We can apply that to working with watercolor. And anyone who wants extra credit and want to do extra watercolor paintings after this exercise, please do that. Heck, start the semester off with 125%. Okay, so I'm thinking the darkest value in this watercolor is that dark purple. Obviously black, I could layer that in. So what is a wash? The first one I'm going over is a wash. A wash is basically water and watercolor combined. So why do we call it watercolor? The water is the vehicle that's getting it going. And whoop, look, it got a little messy. Am I gonna freak out and stop? No, I'm gonna keep going. Okay, and what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna pull it across. Now, remember to my students, you should have your cameras on Zoom and you can show me whenever, like what's happening with your sketchbook if you have a question. Okay, so that's a basic wash, and then you can always go back, get paint, and add more paint into the wash. And you'll see then the dark value kind of goes zooming across. We're zooming in Zoom, guys, with the watercolor. Okay, so adding more. Oh, and I'm layering in blue and purple because I'm really trying to break that down. Again, blue and purple, darkest color. And I'm dabbing into the wash. So I'm sort of combining different watercolor techniques right now. I'm adding some stippling, going really light, right? That's cool. And now I'm dragging some of that dark value into my wash of color. So I did a wash of water across. So the amount of paint is the amount of value. Sorry, that made no sense. The more paint, the more value. Okay. The more water, the less value, right? So it's all watery down over at the 0 side because it's going to 0. It's going to 0. Okay, so making adjustments, bringing things down. I wish you could see what I was doing in the palette. Okay, pulling things across. So again, when you're doing a value scale, you're slowly working from going dark to light. You see? Going light to dark, dark to light. Okay. Adding in more color. Dabbing, 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 dabbing. I'm adding that light blue now. So that light blue would be my number 7. Notice I'm not worried about the grid right now. I have a reference on my left. I see the pencil value scale and I can kind of compare them. And now I am blotting up with the paper towel. Amazing tool, right? I'm blotting up with the paper towel. And I am adding more water, always kind of pull paint out. And now I'm just decorating. I'm not really sure what I'm doing there. I probably realized that my numbers are off. Okay. Yeah, that's what I'm realizing now. So I'm going to change my numbers. No, you can always make changes. So I'm putting my middle in the middle. So this value scale is going to be shorter, but I'm still going to go from 0 to 5. My children, please be quiet. Can I get an acknowledgement? Yes. Thank you. Shh, whisper. We're making a value scale over here. Okay, so going 0. Yeah, I'm making an adjustment. Fabulous, making an adjustment. I have friends where my messy lines would drive them crazy. It really would. They would not like my messy lines. But that's okay. Don't worry about it. Just keep going. Your lines don't need to be messy. Okay. So now I'm starting to do my graded wash. And I'm realizing that I'm trying to model having dark to light. So I pulled that up. Now so I'm not really sure what I'm doing here. It's okay to not be sure sometimes. So a graded wash, what a graded wash is a graded wash is when you slowly turn into another color. So here I'm going to try to combine a graded wash with a value scale, which is kind of hard. So let's kind of see what I do. I'm trying to remember what I did. So I'm doing a lot of purple. I'm going cool color. I think I'm going to try to transition to yellow because yellow is a lighter color. So it's a gradient, a slow change to another color, which ends up looking super cool. So there's my yellow. My yellow's all mucky because I'm bad at keeping my paints clean. It's just something I'm working on. But you can see what I do is I have water there. And then I am slowly pulling the water into... slowly, I have water in there and I'm adding yellow to the water. And then I'm slowly pulling the paint into the value scale, into the purple. So I'm slowly combining them. And you'd think that it would be not pretty because yellow and purple are opposite, but it's kind of making this beautiful brown. I really love it. I remember when I was doing this yesterday, I was like, oh my God, that's so awesome looking. So it's all about happy little accidents. Isn't that what Bob Ross says? It's kind of like you're discovering things. You would not be discovering these things if you weren't taking the time to do this. I have a student who said, I don't use my watercolor. I gave them to my brother and sister. Bro, you got to use your watercolor. It is the best. You make some really vibrant colors. And this is when it gets fun. So you do all the work understanding value with pencil and pen. Do watercolor. And then you could add pen on top of watercolor. Oh, it's going to be so awesome. Okay, so this is a graded wash as well. I'm doing 2 different colors. I'm kind of exploring. Notice how my washes are kind of bleeding into each other. That is okay. I would never take points off. Now, some of you may be watching this going, ooh, it looks so messy. I have so many students who hate watercolor because they feel like they can't control it. I say to you, world, we learn the most.
I do not take watercolor.
We learn the most when we are uncomfortable. Ooh. Isn't that pretty, Sophie?
Yes.
So we learn the most when we are uncomfortable. So I challenge everyone to do watercolor because when you're uncomfortable, when your brain is put in that really uncomfortable space, you're going to learn a lot. Like I am totally uncomfortable with being a mom because it's really hard, right? Is being a 7-year-old hard? It's really hard. So we're learning a lot about how to be people during the pandemic, and our learning is really high. Product placement for nerds. Okay, so you can see I'm kind of like bringing stuff up with the paper towel. With watercolor, the secret, always leave white space. Same with art. You want your white, the light value to be a strategic area, right? So many students, some students are too scared to go dark. Some students don't leave any light at all. They just shade like crazy. You know who you are. So as your goal for this semester, some things you could add to your journal for this week is you can go ahead, you can focus on staying light, you know, have dark, light. You need darkness in order to have light, and you need lightness in order to have dark. Okay, I went ahead and I was talking too much. I moved on to wet on wet. Now, wet on wet, I love wet on wet. It's basically, do you remember what wet on wet is? It's a bunch of water. You put a ton of water down for your wash.
And then you do watercolor.
And then you dab the paint, the watercolor, into the water. Right? So again, you put like a whole stream of water and then you're dabbing it in. It's called wet on wet watercolor. So my paper right now is so wet. It's like a lake. Right? Don't worry about your sketchbook getting wrinkly. It's supposed to be used. And then I'm putting little dots. Little dots. Harry Potter. seeing if I can make my son laugh. I'm putting little dots in what I would do if Professor McGonagall taught art. Putting little dots. So we're putting little dots into the water, wet on wet. Little dots of paint, a Paquito, little dots of paint. You were dropping candy all over the place. Can you pick up the candy? Putting little dots into the water. That's kind of like what's happening here. Okay, I'm taking a break, obviously. Long pause. Okay, and I'm coming back to it, getting more yellow, putting little dots in. Oh, I probably like rinsed my brush. That's what was happening. I'm so bad at rinsing my brush. I would like you to stop. I'm adding more layers of blues and purples, my dark value colors into my 9 and my 10. Notice how I don't have a grid going anymore, right? I'm not worried about it. You can make a grid, but you might drive yourself a little crazy. It's all about having a slow change,
Christmas shirt.
Yes, he got that shirt for Christmas. From LL Bean, more product placement.
Christmas jacket.
So I'm just adding in. Now I'm looking there, my 8 and my 9 right there. They're starting to look like a 10. TBH. They're starting to look like a 10. So I'm kind of like, I am taking that paper towel and I am pulling some of that value out. When you feel that your color's getting too dark, you take a paper towel or you take an eraser and you pull some of that value out of it. Booyah! I'll be here all week. Okay, my red, I feel like the red in your watercolor, students, is kind of like a light middle tone, a light middle value, right? We're gonna look back at this video when you guys are in college. We'll be like, oh my God, they were so, look how little you were. Okay, so I'm still, it is very, very wet in my wet on my watercolor, and I'm still just adding dots into puddles of water. That's what's happening. Students, this is a great thing to do in your visual journal. Just decorate pages with your wet on wet. You can kind of go ahead and make like tie-dye, or you could decorate your drawings, like the edges of your pages with values. So I would love for you to do that. Take your watercolor and make your journal all fancy, but don't go away from watercolor. Okay, so yellow, adding more yellow in, because I'm trying to make a slow change. I've been working on this one value scale for a long time, because it's all about layering, people. When you're exploring lights and darks, you gotta be okay with taking away some values, and you gotta be okay with adding another layer. If you need to bring it down, bring it down. If you need to bring it up, bring it up.
Mommy,
yeah.
Can I look at your passion planner?
Yes, yes, go ahead, go look for it. Look in my bag.
Where is it?
Okay, in the end, Jacob, in the end, one of the final exercises you can do is you can go ahead and you can do line weight, and you can do this at the beginning, but I just want to remind everyone that that line, like making. Okay, everyone. So I'm writing the word with pencil, line weight with pencil. So go ahead and make that title, line weight with pencil. This is an exercise you can do as many times as you want. As many times as you want, this line weight with pencil exercise. Please do that. And you could do it on a whole page. Line has value too, and I didn't want to end this video without talking about that. The line that you make on a page with a pen or a pencil or a marker, it has value, meaning it's heavier or lighter. So just review going light to dark, right? Light to dark with line weight. Because when you draw, you have to think about that, okay? So we're returning to pencil at the end of this fundamentals video, and I'm just going dark to light, dark to light, dark to light. I remember doing this exercise. I tell all the students this. I did this in my basic drawing class in college. It was 2001. Whoa, 20 years ago. And I remember thinking, this is the most ridiculous thing. Why are we doing this? I don't think the teacher ever explained why. Maybe the teacher did, but it is huge. How hard you press with your pencil, that is everything. That is the secret to drawing. It's kind of like this looseness and just being aware of line weight. Also, your line can go in different directions. So we're gonna go dark to light, dark to light. And notice how there's like a sudden change in the middle, right? So again, I'm going dark to light, dark to light. And I'm gonna try to go all the way to the bottom of the page. Okay guys, again, you can also do value with pen as well. So that might be something to explore. And this is easier with a ballpoint pen if you have a ballpoint pen, but any sort of pen, just see if like, can you make your lines darker when you press down without destroying the pen, obviously, but just work on pressure when you're drawing with your pen and think about that. Again, your sketchbook pages can have thousands of lines like this. There is no such thing as too much line. Again, there is no such thing as too much line. So just make sure you're open to adding and exploring as many lines as you can. So this is a video about the fundamentals of exploring lights and darks and the importance of value in art with different mediums. Oh, look, I'm exploring it with marker too. So another way to think about line weight is like a really fat line versus a skinny line. And what I'm doing is I'm slowly turning the tip of the marker to get a thin line. But I would practice doing that too. That's really great because you can draw with marker, right? We're so scared of sketching with the marker, but we're gonna kind of like talk about that as we move on. So dark to light with our marker, fabulous. Okay, and I feel like this is a really good page. I did a lot of learning. I didn't write any lessons on this right page, but I love this because I used the whole page for learning. So it's like a great use of space. So the whole page is used. Oh, I'm writing lessons right there, even though my sketchbook is all wet. So just always, when you're done at the end of a work session, just kind of like pause, write down a few thoughts. They don't have to be in complete sentences, but what are you learning? What are you realizing? What are you figuring out as you're exploring art and you're exploring the different mediums? What are you wondering as we are doing this journey of learning art? All right, guys, thank you so much for paying attention. I really appreciate you watching. Have a great day, everyone. Do art.